Get my Sunday meeting clothes on for this, huh?
Okay, go ahead and do your clap. Yeah. A little louder. Okay. Nice to see you again, Vern. We think about you a lot. You have good stories to tell us. Last time you talked a lot about your childhood. And we were wondering a little bit more about how you met your wife, and maybe if you feel like talking about some of your military stuff, that would be interesting too. Are those some things you think you'd like to talk about?
Well, I can throw my first wife in with the military.
Okay,
My
go ahead.
second wife, she was all peacetime.
I didn't know you had a second wife.
Yeah,
Oh,
I lost my first one after 10 months, 2 days, and or 10 months. Oh gosh.
I do remember you telling me that now, yeah. So, how did you first meet her? Your first wife?
My first wife.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't really meet her because somebody back here, I was out in the South Pacific. Somebody back here in the stateside, somebody took me under her wing. She called me her foster son. I guess it's somebody that I didn't know at all, except that she had a couple nieces up in Medford living there, and they went down to see her once in a while, and I don't know how we got together anyhow, but we got together there, and just got acquainted with her anyhow, and I didn't really meet anybody, but when I was down in the South Pacific, she said this is a nice girl, she'd like me to write to her. And so I boldly wrote to her, and she answered back, and we just conversed back and forth. This is two people who didn't know each other. And then I lost my ship back in the South Pacific, so I had to come home, get another one. And 13 days after I met her, we got married.
13 days? Was it love at first sight?
Not really. No, we were riding together and everything, and always kind of all my life has been stupid things anyhow. And so we were just riding together and everything, and so when she came to see me when I got back here anyhow, we took a walk in the park, just the two of us, and we just got to talking, and I said something, that people are expecting us to get together somehow and sometime or whatever. I don't really know how, but anyhow, we got acquainted just by that, getting together on a Sunday afternoon, because I was back here to go get another ship. And it was 13 days from the day we met until I got married. And then 13 days later, we were on our way to the East Coast where I was going to pick up a new ship. And, well, it was just a 13 in there that happened to be the time that we got acquainted until we married, and then took off.
Decided you liked her. How was it to leave her so soon after you'd gotten married? Was that kind of hard?
For who?
For you or her?
Well, I didn't have anybody. After all, I went into the service with a girlfriend.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But she stepped out of line with me and even got herself pregnant, so she was out of the picture.
Yeah.
And then this one steps into line, and she just comes over for the Sunday afternoon to get to meet. We took a walk in the park, and things happened.
Did you have children?
We had 5 children.
Wow. Now, you boys or girls?
Well, there were 3 boys and 2 girls. Right now, I have 1 boy and 1 girl left. That's all.
Okay.
And it's kind of funny. After the 5 children, the youngest one lost his life in a motorcycle accident.
Okay.
And the second one, well, this is the one that I married when we came home, this short span of 13 days. That she had asthma from the day she was born. And so they didn't have anything to call it, I guess, at that time, except just asthma. Well, my oldest daughter, my second child, our second child, somehow inherited her lungs. And so she was married, had 3 kids. She married somebody out here, just that got a job out here, got work. I guess he was in the service too, but anyhow, he got work with the McClellan Air Force Base. He was in the Air Force anyhow. And he took her back to the East Coast. But she inherited her mother's lungs. Now they call it chronic obstructive lung disease. So they put a name on it. And so she didn't last anymore. 20 years, 2 months, and 1 day.
Wow.
And I lost her. And I had the 5 children. The youngest one was 3 years old. And tell you what, I was a busy papa for a while there. Just losing your wife and nobody to take care of the kids. Well, the oldest girl was also, she could, be helpful in everything. And so it was something we got through anyhow. But then my youngest girl and the youngest girl of another lady that, well, she had been, her husband ran off and left her. She had been alone for 12 years, I believe it was now. And so she was financially strapped at the time. Coming off of the prosperity of the war, and then all of a sudden not any prosperity like that. And she was kind of in a problem, a money problem, and trying to keep a job because she had a good job during the war. But then after the war, things changed all the way around. And so somehow we her youngest daughter and my youngest daughter were the best friends in school, and so they sort of tied the knot for us.
They worked it out.
They, I don't think they did it on purpose, but anyhow, we saw we could each help the other. I had lost my wife, and I needed somebody to help me with the household, the kids, the babies, and everything. And I don't know where I was.
How was it blending the two families together? Was that pretty easy?
It was easy. It seemed like everything was going to work so nice. But somehow her kids were a little older than mine. And so after we got together, they had their bedrooms. I had the two girls, and I don't remember how the bedrooms worked anyhow, but we had a pretty good sized house, and so we managed to get all bedrooms all figured out. Well, there was 3 over here, and then 1 way over there, because the other kids were a little bit older anyhow, so they didn't match up too good that way, and so we had a little problem.
It's difficult putting two families together sometimes. Yeah. Well, how about your time in the Navy? You were in the Navy or the Marines?
I was in the Navy.
In the Navy.
Yeah, I was, well, this is while I was living in South Dakota. That one kid that some other people had, we were all farmers. And there's some kid that another family had, seemed like he was just getting off on the wrong foot. So they sent him into the Navy. And when he came home on leave, you know, that nice blue Navy uniform, I wanted to be a sailor. And so when I did get to where I had to make a decision, it was getting close to the draft time, but I never was drafted. I volunteered, and I went into the Navy, of course. And that's where everything happened. I mean, that's where I got married from and everything.
You were on the Helena? What was the name of your ship?
The Helena, we called it.
Helena.
The Helena. I guess it's Helena, St. Helena in Montana, but to us it was the Helena.
Helena. And where were you, in the Pacific, or were you in the...
Right in the middle of the South Pacific.
Yeah, okay.
Right in where the big scraps were.
Did you go to Okinawa? I mean, not Okinawa, what's the name of that?
Well, we were in that area down there, the South Pacific, where the Japanese are on their way to Australia.
Okay.
They were headed that way, but we were down there to put a stop to it. Now, the war in Europe was sort of getting over with a little bit, and but it hadn't gotten over enough that they could send all their people, their troops over there. So I got right into the middle of the biggest scraps in the South Pacific, and that's where I lost my ship.
Were you actually on the ship when it was sunk?
Oh yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, I don't know.
How did you get off?
The torpedoes came and hit us, and I mean, there was a boom, and then there was a boom, and then there was a period of time where it waited a little bit, and then another boom. So we took 3 torpedoes, and you couldn't really expect the ship to stay afloat after taking 3 torpedoes, but it sank, but it gave everybody a chance to get off that could get off. We lost like about 200 men out of 1,200 was our complement. And
were you on lifeboats or?
we were on rafts. We had rafts.
Okay.
And of course, it's dark. There was no moon or nothing that particular night. It was just dark, and you couldn't even see anything out there until it got close enough to you. And so after we lost our ship, and there was a group of people that on each raft that sort of drifted away from the ship, and somehow they didn't all drift in the same direction. And so we got separated. You couldn't see anything. It was the blackest night. Couldn't see anything, so some of the kids went all the next day, and then before nightfall, they got a piece of land, an island out in the South Pacific, where they got to this island. And of course, all of the natives were on our side. They didn't like the Japanese either, because they were, really mistreating them. And so the natives would help us, kept us hidden as much as they could and everything. And so we had them working for us.
Nice. You had somebody there to help you, and there was land that close.
Yeah, well, it was a little pocket down there in the South Pacific where that's where all of the fighting was anyhow.
That must have been pretty scary to have that happen to you.
It was kind of scary, but you knew that this always could happen. And so you really weren't scared, but still maybe you were a little bit. But anyhow, we only lost about 200 people.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
It's sad to lose any, but that's not too bad.
No.
Yeah.
Out of 1,200 people.
How did you get rescued?
Well, I got rescued just before daylight. It was still dark, and we could see this movement going by us, going out there. And so we had a signalman with us. Just happened to be one of the signal men was on our raft. And so he challenged them, a ship that we thought we saw goodbye. It just looked like a shadow there, But we had flashlights, and so we challenged them anyhow, without a boat or anything.
Oh, no.
But anyhow, that's just how we got acquainted with somebody out there in the middle of the ocean who picked us up. And of course, it was just before daylight, just before starting to get light.
Yeah.
We got on board the ship, and it was still dark, and then it was getting light right away. And so they were out there just picking up, looking for survivors.
Okay. They were probably happy to find so many of you on that island, huh?
Well, we didn't get to an island. That was just one group got to
Not
an
your
island.
group. Okay.
No, there were like about 3 groups.
Okay.
And
So you were still on the raft.
on a raft, yeah.
Okay.
And that's where we crawled up the sides in the dark on board this ship. And we were rescued.
Good. That's good. And then you went back and you got another ship, and it was also called Helena.
No, this ship that we were on now, yeah, that was the Helena.
Helena.
Yeah. And it was an old ship. It had been built and was in the service and everything all the time. And when we came back, we got a new ship, the USS Houston.
Oh, Houston. Okay.
But the Helena was the one that sunk with us. And most of us got, when we got back to the States, they were building a ship back in Newport News, Virginia. And we got most of us assigned to the same ship.
Oh, wow.
And they were just making their assignments then. The ship was almost finished, and so they were really getting ready to go. And so we got assigned to the ship. Most of the whole crew. The old crew came up to the new crew, and so everybody knew everybody, almost, and everything.
That made it easier.
Yeah, we sort of already were working together, and so we sort of fit right in there.
How do you think being in the military, in the Navy like that, how do you think those experiences changed your life? Did they? Do you feel like you learned some stuff, or it changed you somehow as a person?
Well, if you can think about the changes from a sheep ranch in North Dakota, that's where I was born, and then farming down in South Dakota, and when I had finished high school, I went out west, with a couple other kids. And this one lady was somebody who drove out to California and stayed in California for the winter months. Mm-hmm. And then we rode with her out there and somehow struggled along and got a job here and here and there, and sort of made our way. But, my mother had drifted off and left my dad. She married another guy, but he was on the West Coast. They were on the West Coast. And so after traveling back and forth a couple times, that to me, as a farm kid, just getting dumped out there and kind of crazy, yeah. No running water, no electricity, but I had already studied a little bit about electricity and over the years, And so I wired the house. So then we had electricity, but of course no running water. I still had to go and get a bucket from the neighbor anytime we wanted to have water. So.
Wow. Good thing you went and became an electrician so you could help your mom, huh?
Well, I just wanted to be an electrician from when I was just a little kid somehow. I don't know how many hot-shot batteries that I might have worn out for my poor dad. We used what they called a hot-shot battery to start the old Model T. And so I ruined a few of them for him, all right. Just monkeying with electricity. That's all I had to do with. Well, I got to where I built an automobile generator, put a propeller on it, and made an electric wind machine. And so that, at least then we could charge a battery. And being we now could charge a battery, that means that, hey, we can have a radio now. So somebody was, just getting a new radio, and so they sold us their old one. And because now we had a wind machine, we could get a battery then and operate it. And
so is that what you did for a living then, Vern?
that's
you were an electrician?
Yeah, I just had it, I guess, in my blood that I was going to be an electrician all the way from the beginning, whatever, anyhow.
Is that what you did when you were in the Navy? Were you an electrician?
I was an electrician all the time, yeah. And after I got out of the Navy, I put in, I was on a 6-year hitch. So when everybody else, this is the war going on, and it was over with, and so when everybody else got out of the service, they went back and got their jobs and their union affiliations and everything all settled, tied up. And so when I came out, I couldn't get a job. I didn't belong to a union. And I couldn't join a union because I didn't have a job. And so there was really nothing else but civil service. And so I worked for the state of California, and I happened to get a job at Folsom Prison. And so I put in 31 years at Folsom Prison before I retired. So I got a pretty good pension out of it.
Yeah.
I didn't make the money that others were making as electricians or plumbers or whatever out there. But mine was nice and steady. I didn't have to bounce from one job or one employer to another or anything. I just worked at the maintenance department in the prison.
At the old Folsom Prison, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. You have any stories you'd like to tell us about that? Or is that just a...
That was it was just a smooth
Was it?
sailing through all the time. Oh, we had a little scuffles along the way, but not any real troubles like, well, they had troubles before I got there. And I guess I had some pretty big troubles after I retired from there too. But as it was expanding then, they built another prison. Well, this was a maximum security prison. Folsom Prison was a maximum security. But then they had what they called a ranch for the trustees could work out there if they were interviewed, and they felt that they could trust them to not run away because they were somebody who could do their time and get over with. It's funny how you see all of that happening, and these guys had been working along and so hard, working and everything, working inside the prison. See, we were just like foremen, and all of the prisoners were like the workers. And so they could well, some of them, they had the security where they could go working anywhere around there. Some of them couldn't do that, so they could work in the shops down on the inside.
Did you have any inmates working with you?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
you were able to train them?
Yes, we were.
How did that feel to be able to, because you probably helped them, give them skills they could use when they got out, right?
Yeah, it's kind of sad. They developed skills just working in the prison, but somehow it was just like it's in their blood. They put their time in and get out, and so many of them were out only sometimes a few months, sometimes a couple days before they did something they shouldn't do, so they got sent back in.
Well, Vern, let's talk about one more thing, unless there's something else you want to talk about. I'm wondering, what did you do after you retired?
What did I do after we retired? We went traveling. We had a pickup and a trailer. And well, I lost my first wife, and this is with my second wife now. And we traveled back and forth across the United States, like this daughter that married this Easterner from McClellan out here, I guess it was. And she went back there, and so we would go back there and visit her. I could go back to South Dakota to stop in on the way, and I dropped by North Dakota where I was born and everything, and just had a big old grand time. I had enough pension that kept us going, and so we just did all this traveling, and that was really a nice, pretty time of my life.
Chance you had to finally rest after all your hard work.
You know, I never even thought about that, of course, but yeah, that's what it was like, a nice rest period after all of the hard work.
Wonderful. It sounds like you've had a good life. A lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, well, I look back now, and I can't really understand why I was mixed up into so many things, and then talking to other people, they seem to never even got any farther than their backyard. But me, from South Dakota, came out to California. Well, I came out to Oregon, really, but spent most of my time in California because my connections, I don't know, just somehow worked out better in California than Oregon, so.
And then off to the Pacific and back east and all over the place, huh?
Yeah.
That's really good. Is that about time now? Okay. I think that's it for today. I love your stories. You have wonderful stories.